Hello and welcome to another episode of Chats with Chip. I'm your host, Chip Griffin, the founder of Saga, the Small Agency Growth Alliance. And I am delighted to have with me one of my most regular guests, and a very interesting one at that, Lee McKnight Jr., otherwise known as Lima Nightmare from
Correct.
US.
Power, sir. It's been too long.
It has been way too long.
People are watching. Oh,
Yes, if you are watching this on video,
the best.
my condolences, first of all, for having to look at us for me for the next 20 minutes or so. But Lee was holding up his Lima Nightmare t-shirt because I guess this is a number of years ago, the automated transcription for one of the shows that he was on with me came out with his name being Lima Nightmare. And so my wife and I call him Lima Nightmare from there on out.
And we're kind enough to send me the shirt.
Well, I mean, you have to. I mean, when it's a cool name like that, you can't help but.
I will tell you, and this is not our here, but quickly, I played in a cover band here in town, and I wore this shirt. I was just sending you pictures. Someone asked me to one of the breaks, like in Lima, Ohio, you're like a nightmare. And I'm like, well, that's not actually what it is, but I see where you're, okay, it's there. I was shooting Donovan. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a professional wrestler. I'm from Lima, and that's what they call me.
I mean, I mean, just wait if I told you the story of what happened in Lima that one night, you know. I mean,
Right.
in any case,
Yes.
so that we can bring this a little bit back onto the
Yes,
rails,
yes.
I suppose we should, because as much entertainment as it would be for us to go down this path for the next 20 minutes, it's probably not what you've tuned in for. But we're going to talk about a number of things from an agency business development front, because obviously that is Lee's particular area of expertise. And so, I mean, I thought I'd kick it off by just, talking about what are you seeing and what are you hearing as far as the outlook for agencies in the next year?
Yeah. It'll be interesting because we both had survey reports that we've released. And this one we had last month was a little bit new for us because we put our New Year Outlook survey out in January, Agency View Business Survey, which we actually just finished, or I'm finishing as we speak, which will be out here in about 2 weeks. But we decided to drop one in the middle and follow up for where agencies were beginning of the year to now. And generally speaking, there was a certain level of optimism around this back half of 24, which we're obviously already in. You know what are the things that we saw or I should say the beginning of 24 coming out of 23, certain levels of frustration, I think from a business development standpoint, the two things for sure. And they've not gone away, but it is sales cycle. I feel like we talked about this the last time, but sales cycles that just were taking longer, even signing contracts. And well, we got to kick this can down the road. Sorry. And then budgets not being as robust as they have been. What we're seeing is those two things still in play, unfortunately, but have gotten better. In terms of percentage, I think for us, I think it was around in terms of overall optimism for this back half. Essentially, we were just talking about these stats. I think ours was closer to like 52, 48% of agencies in terms of what they think is going to be happening in that back half, which feels like we're leading there, but pretty higher level than I would expect.
Yeah. And in our case, we looked at the next 12 months, and this is research that concluded in early August. So that may account for some of the differences because you're looking at the back half of the year. But our group was extremely optimistic that their revenue would grow over the following 12 months. About 68% of the respondents anticipated that, predicted that their revenue would grow. A similar number suggested that profits would grow. Unfortunately, only about a third thought that their headcount would grow. So that suggests one of two bad numbers. Either they are way overstaffed today, which I know a lot of agencies are, because agencies are typically very slow to downsize when their revenue goes down, and they convince themselves that there's hope around the corner. And so, it often puts them in a difficult situation. But the other possibility is that they're like, well, I've had a tough couple of years. I'm going to make up for this by jacking my profits up by not hiring, which then means you're probably going to have a morale problem in the next year or two.
Yeah, I will. Yes, I would tend to agree with that. I didn't, when you gave you that stat, I was surprised. And I think, agencies, the cyclical world we live in, you got to have that optimism to be sure. And because otherwise just could be kicking yourself. But I think that, as far as what we have seen that's working, or just from a business development standpoint, is that omni-channel approach, and it so happens to be self-serving. I mean, that's what we do at RSW, but that's not why I bring it up. It is purely because, what we've seen, especially post-COVID, I don't know how much longer we can say that until we can just stop talking about it, but I feel like it's still warranted to talk about a bit because those impacts are still what we're dealing with in many ways, I believe. Um, it's interesting, especially digital agencies, God bless them, and it's understandable, but that will kind of fall prey to a lot of these tropes of, in terms of what's working on the business development side. We're like, no one's picking up the phone anymore. No one's going to, answer emails. It's so cluttered and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, well, now we're having self-serving prophecies where, they're self-fulfilling, I should say, where, yeah, if you're not trying these things, but I think ultimately things like AI, which are nowhere near, and I'm throwing out a bunch of topics we can go back to here, but I think that's one that everyone's super excited about. What we're seeing now, how is it literally helping our business? So one thing it's not doing yet, I'm sure you can attest, Chip, I did the same 30 emails a day that we all do. And some of those now are AI driven, and it is blatantly obvious that they are.
It's awful.
Yeah. And they've either straight from LinkedIn and they're like, hello, Lee, who went to University of Kentucky and is in Cincinnati. And it's, so that's not, who knows? And it obviously is moving quickly. And I'm certainly not going to profess to be an expert where we're seeing that, just if I may this per se, I put us there. On the list building side of things, you still you're not able to pull a list using AI and have it be ready, set, go in terms of prospecting lists. We are seeing, and I'm not getting sponsored, but things like Ocean AI and Seamless AI are two of the ones we've been experimenting with and using. And again, there's a lot of them out there. It seems like every day they're dropping a new one. It can help in finding companies. That's definitely where we're seeing it being a helpful tool, but building a list out, not really. It's not going to help you do that. So I think I feel like it's a ways away, or maybe it's not. So that'll be helpful for agencies. If you can get that piece nailed down, that'll be huge. But I think for us, otherwise, it's certainly helped me in forming content thoughts and organizing. But when I tried to do any writing beyond that, it's again, so blatant, and it's not there yet. But I think it's something that, and as we're writing a report, we asked that's about to come out here in a couple of weeks, a sneak peek. But last year, it was 38% of agencies were using AI for business development. And then we asked the second question, like, okay, well, how are we using it? Well, then there weren't a lot of good answers because it was still fairly new. And today, just from the last month, I'm taking the survey now, it's up to 57%. And the answer for basically what I threw out to you is yes, shaping and forming content. It's even doing some competitive analysis, but I think they're finding ways on that end to help the effort, nothing else, save some time and be able to get it out there a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the challenge is that agencies, particularly small agencies, are always looking for the silver bullet. And so
Right.
when and it's, just as you'll find, there are lots of YouTube videos and articles and books out there that says, here's your secret formula to building
Right.
a 7-figure agency overnight, no sweat. Anybody can do it. And I think a lot of agencies look at AI in the same way, or have looked at it in the same way, which is, oh, this is going to make it so that, I don't have to pay writers, or
Right.
I don't have to do any, real manual research for lists. It'll just all be, served up on a silver platter to me. And the reality is that AI, like many things, can be very helpful, but it is still just helpful. It is not a
Yeah.
replacement for anything. And I still like to compare it to a good intern, right? And you can, a
Yeah.
good intern does a lot of stuff for you, but you still got to check it over. You still have to do more work on it to take it across the goal line. It's not
Absolutely.
immediately client ready, prospect ready, mail ready, whatever. And if you think about it that way, then there's a lot of things that it can do for you, and can help you to be much more effective, both in growing your business, but also serving your clients.
Yeah. Yep. No, agreed. Agreed. And so I think while that is interesting, I go back, if I may, to that kind of omni-channel approach. And I think, of course, they're going to default to referrals as they always have. And that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a fantastic thing. But
Yeah,
we
if
talk
people who
about it.
dump on referrals, I don't get it. Like, I have people
Oh,
who, because they watch these videos that tell them, you shouldn't be relying on referrals. Well, why not? if you can actually figure out how to generate more and more of them, that's the best way to grow.
Oh, yeah.
The
And
problem is eventually you probably have to do other things beyond that in order to keep growing, but maybe not. It depends on your business model.
that's it. And that's exactly it. And yeah, anyone that says that you shouldn't do that is, well, foolish. What to say? And it really is, because it's quite frankly, it's not easy. None of this is easy, but it
No.
is versus building out a, outsourced, or excuse me, a business development strategy that is outbound. But I agree with the second part of what you said, and that is, and we'll say the same thing when we get clients on board. It's like, if you can referrals, you have a strategy in place and that's working, do not stop that, because that's fantastic. And why would you? Same with organic growth. You got to have a plan for that. But again, to your point, it's those referrals typically aren't sustainable, or I guess a better word is dependable, in terms of when they're coming in. And so to have some kind of outbound and inbound components, it doesn't have to be us. We're the small and mid-sized firms, which we work with predominantly, and obviously you as well, feel like, why we can't sustain this, something like RSW does. Like, well, you might not need to, quite frankly, because if you have these referrals in place and that's making up a certain percentage of what you're doing, it's working. To have a manageable process in outbound where you not going after 1,000 companies, because you're not going to be able to sustain that, and you're going to give up and it's going to get frustrating. I'm going to pick my initial 20 or 30. I'm going to go after those over the course of the next X amount of weeks, and know that 1 hour a day or whatever it is, it might sound very simple, but that's the way to do it. And that way you've got some of that backup where you're not solely relying on any one of those channels, if you will. And we've seen agencies that can do it, and it pays dividends. I think where it gets problematic, self-serving on my part, but is that new business director, when they try and get it and hire one of those in the small and mid-sized firm side, it is hard, because if they're really good, they're going to be expensive. And if they're really good, they tend to jump around a lot. I mean, it's seeing some resumes lately, it's been crazy. So these people jump around as often as they do, especially when they're getting into the big, as you will know, up into the larger agencies.
Sure.
It's what, 18 months, right? That still hasn't changed. 18 months of the average tenure. When you can director in an agency, it's not funny, but it's life. It hasn't changed in years. That's that.
Right. And I mean, that's why the vast majority of small agencies need to think about how they can leverage some of these resources, but you can't be dependent upon them.
Yeah.
Again, it's not the silver bullet. I talked to plenty of owners who are like, well, I'll just hire a new business person, and then I won't have to worry about it anymore. And that is no, because to your point, well, one of two things will happen. They'll either do a good job and they'll move on because they did a good job.
Yeah.
Or they'll suck and they'll move on because they sucked. So either way, what's the outcome? They move on. And so then you're back to square one, you get to start over again. So,
Yeah.
The reality is, small agency owners got to be involved in business development, no matter whether you have a business development person on board, whether you're working with someone like RSW US, whether you're, just playing lottery. The owner's got to have some involvement.
Yeah. For sure.
And I think the other thing to me, and one of the things that I saw in some of the research that we did recently as well, is some of the tactics that are more serving of the prospect base tend to work better. So, for example, 2 of the top 5 tactics were hosting a podcast and creating videos.
Okay.
And both of those, and they're not used by a significant number of agencies, but
No.
those who are, they are ranked among the top 5 most effective things, only slightly behind referrals. And those are because they are of a service mindset, in my view. And so instead of coming in and saying, me, you've got something that you can provide as a resource for your prospects. And even things like podcasts. I love podcasts as an outreach tool, which is not how most people think of it. But if you have a podcast and you do it interview style, you can reach out to prospective clients and invite them on the show. That's a much better way to start the relationship with them than say, hey, I looked at your website. It sucks. Let me tell you how to fix it. Which is the vast majority of the direct email that I see. It says something to the effect of, your video sucks, your website sucks, your PR sucks, we'll solve it.
Yeah.
Who starts a relationship that way? I mean, that's like going to the bar and saying, you're ugly, but I could tell you how to dress better. And then maybe you'd be a worthy date. Like, what?
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, I agree. It's at least better than this rash of, I'll give you $100 Amazon gift card that I get every other email. At least they're trying to show that they have some level of expertise, but I 100% agree. If that's the initial outreach, it's like, oh, yeah, you offended someone. That's awesome.
Right.
But yeah, instead, it's so funny. Not many are doing, but the ones who are doing it, especially, and you're right, the interview avenue is the way to go on the podcast. And I could name 5 or 6 agencies right now and I've had 2 of them in my interview series where they've kept it up, and that expertise, man, it's to your point. It is such a value, and they got it mastered now to where they'll do something like the software you're using right now, this platform that we're on. We use the same one. You can nail that down, and it's work, but it's manageable, and the dividends it can pay off. I can't stress enough how right you are, and some folks, I do understand. Some of them don't feel comfortable. They feel like they're not good interviewers. We have 2 series. I feel like my interview series is maybe not as good as when it's just me getting my 3 takeaways. But I've had folks say, no, the interviews are good. You're pulling good information out. So, it's not to make that about me, but it's just, I think a lot of these folks, these agency principals who don't probably think that they're very good, give it a shot or bring someone in. There might be another partner or someone there who can drive that train. And it is such a valuable tool because having and establishing that expertise, whether it's one vertical or whatever it might be, agencies are still getting frustrated today when they hear like from me or from others, like you have to niche down, you have to specialize. We talked about this before, but I can't say it enough, that it doesn't mean you only have to play in one vertical at all. It can mean that, but they prospects want to see that there is some authority, expertise, leadership. Do a podcast like that, and it could be other forms of content, but man, that's one great way to do it, and you get it down to a science.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree that guests on podcasts are a real drag, but it isn't.
Oh, geez, I walked into that one.
You did. But look, and it doesn't have to be a podcast, right? I mean,
It does.
I understand that it is not a fit for everybody. I happen to be passionate about them because I've been creating podcasts since the late 1990s, before an iPod even came out, and before you even thought to call it this. So it is a format that I really like, and I think is really valuable. I think to me, the key takeaway was that it's providing things that benefit your audience and allow you to share your expertise as well. So it's a multi pronged win, because you are building relationships and you are helping people to know more about you and what you know about. I mean, I know for myself in the work that I do today, almost every client that I get is someone who has listened to my podcast, watched my videos. And so they feel like they already know me, and they certainly understand what my perspective is. So they're not coming in and then surprised when I rant and rave about something in their business, because they've heard me do it before. And so they know what to, and if you don't like those things, if you don't like me saying that you need to have a focus and you need to focus on project profitability and all the things that I go on about, you're just not going to call me up. And so that's great. I'm getting better fit clients. Agencies can do the same thing. Again, it doesn't have to be a podcast, but it's got to be something that allows your expertise to shine. It could be webinars, it could be articles, it could be ebooks, it could be videos. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that you can do, and you just need to find the one that you're most comfortable with. And to your point, you need to stick with it.
Yeah.
Because too often I see agencies try these new business development tactics, and they do it for a month or two, and then, they're on to something else. I mean, I've worked with plenty of agency owners over the years who are like, well, I did this great webinar on this topic. What industry should I focus on next? The same one, right? Yeah. I mean, until you're tired of it, you haven't even begun to make an impression. Same thing with direct mail, back when direct mail was a thing. And I still think actually direct mail is something people should still consider today, because there's a lot less mail being received. I'm not saying it's a fit for everybody, but think about it, right? Sometimes, going against the tide can be an interesting place to
another tool, right?
Yeah, another tool. But it's not the kind of thing where you do one email or even email or direct mail or whatever, and you're done, and you say, okay, well, I didn't get any results, so I'm done. No, you've got to keep doing it. You got to keep at it. And so you need to find whatever it is that you can do well, that you will keep with, and that will help you to build your business much more quickly.
100%. And they're going to see part of the passion, if you will. But 2 other pieces I'd add to what you just said, which I 100% agree with. But one is build it and they will not come, just because you've done it. Now you got to get it into your prospect's lap or get it out there at workflow. And the other thing is, because too many agencies don't do that. Like, okay, we did it. Okay, well, okay, that's good. But now how are you getting that in front of people? And to follow up on that, I would get when we first did our video series, Three Takeaways, and now we're about to today on episode 107, which to some podcasters would be like, wow, that's a lot. Others is like, yeah, I passed that years. Of course, right? Sure you did. But it was a thing where we're seeing the views, and still today, if you go and look on our YouTube channel, anywhere from like 200 to 300 for the first like 6 months. And that grew over time. And I would be like, oh my God, as my daughter would point out, that's not good, Dad. So, well, actually, those are all, I mean, for the most part, agencies, right? Individuals that care. And that's a pretty darn good amount. So if you have, don't get discouraged. You have numbers like that, or even in the beginning, like not much at all, because it takes time to build. I can point to literally at least 8 different clients specifically that told me, I am talking to you because I watched that episode, that came on board. And so what that translates to in terms of profit is fantastic in terms of like what we're spending on those videos. Yeah, the equipment up front, which you can get nuts with it, of course. But beyond that,
about there.
I was going to say, Craig, who does our stuff, still wants to talk to you about your entire setup.
I've only spent like $10 on the whole thing. I spent no time.
$10, people. That's it. But, and that's a big, that pays off as well. But you can, it's something that, again, just don't get discouraged. It's certainly not take away. To your point, keep it going because it will pay off. But again, you have to get it in front of folks.
And in fact, I'd say in most cases, just don't look at the numbers. The vast majority of the time, it really, honestly, it doesn't matter because what you really are looking for is, are people talking to you about what you're providing? And so to me, if I back when I did digital consulting and digital marketing for folks, one of the questions I was asked in the early days of blogging was, how many people need to read my blog in order for it to matter?
Right.
And I'm like, it could be 3,000, it could be 3. I mean, if those 3 are, Barack Obama, Warren Buffett, and Bill Gates, and they all love what you have to say, who the heck cares about anything else? This was, of course, back in 2009 and if it's all about, are you reaching the right people? Are you having the impact? And the vast majority of agencies who are listening to us today don't need more than 10 to 15 good clients at any one time.
Yeah, true.
The vast majority of agencies do not need tens or hundreds of clients.
Couldn't do it.
Most couldn't, right? I mean, it's,
so we want to do it,
So that means realistically, unless you have a huge retention problem, in which case solve that before you worry about bringing on new clients, you only need a handful of new clients every year. So if you've got 25 people who are loyal listeners and they're part of your ICP, there's a good chance that that's enough. And you don't need more than 25 people listening or reading or talking to you or whatever.
Agreed. And I think that brings us full circle to, in the beginning, talking about just business development in general and kind of some trends. We'll see another one as I'm writing our new report and seeing, the average time it takes to close a piece of business. Has once again, it's 1 to 6 months has always kind of been the yardstick, if you will. But that percentage is increasing even more to really, it's turning into like 6, 7, 8 months. And man, I've seen too many agencies who just, I don't refuse to accept that is too strong a word, but just like, build it and they won't come. You have to keep doing it. You have to have that consistency. It's the same with business development. And that's something that anyone wouldn't know that's ever been a part of business development is that you have to keep at it. But we can say that all we want, and any agency can say they get it. But when the rubber hits the road and they're in like month 3 or month 4 and you haven't closed something yet, that's most agencies. Like for us, we have 30% of clients that close in the first 6 months. It does happen, but it's especially now, and hopefully that will change with these sales cycles, but it's something that you got to dig your heels in and you got to keep it up, whether it's content, whether it's your business development program. It's one of the biggest things I see, and I get it. I'm an impatient person myself. You want to see the result, and you will, but you got to keep it consistent.
Yeah, and I'm sure you get asked, as I do all the time, how can I hurry those people along? How can I get them to close faster? And look, the reality is that once they're in your pipeline, there's not a whole lot that you can do to speed it up. Because the problem is, even if you are successful in hastening their decision, it may not be a good decision. And so you
Fair.
do need to give them the room to make the decision that actually works for them, because it's no good to get them to close in 2 months versus 6 months, and then they disappear after three because they rush into a decision that they weren't really ready for,
Yeah.
or that they didn't really embrace. But to me, the way that you shorten those sales cycles is some of those things we talked about. Provide the resources in advance.
Yeah.
So they're coming to you primed. I mean, I can tell you that in all the businesses where I've had podcasts, articles, ebooks, etc., the sales cycle for people who consume that is always shorter.
Yeah.
Always, 100% of the time shorter. It may not be as short as I'd like it to be, but it is shorter because they already know a lot about you and they've already crossed that threshold of accepting you as an expert. And now they just need to figure out how it fits into their own plans and internal processes and all that kind of stuff. So once they're in there, don't
Yeah.
worry about speeding them up. Instead, prime the pump and get them ready to buy before they even come in.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. The only thing I'd add to that, though, is that while speeding up is not something that maybe is going to happen, the beauty of priming the pump is when they are in that pipeline, and let's say it is X amount of weeks out or whatever that timeline might be, you can take all that content, whatever it is, they haven't seen it all most likely. Even if they have, you can drop that into their world again. And I just did it today. I just did a round with some of my hotter prospects. I was not selling. I said, you know what? I haven't, I could see, when we sent out our newsletter and everything else, what they'd opened and what they hadn't. They never opened this. So I dropped that into their worlds. Hey, really enjoyed talking with you. Look forward to catching up here in the next couple of weeks. Thought this might help you right now, though. This is something we created, whether it's our report, whether it's a video I did. What we're doing right now, I will send out to people, right? And say, hey, it's a thing with Chip that, I think you might find value in. And again, it kind of shows that this is the way that we think. And most never do that, right? So you're going to set yourself apart just by doing that. So you're both priming the pump, and at the same time able to use that content ongoing. You're not going to get it too hard, to your point, because that won't speed it up. It'll just get annoyed. But just dropping that in can be a difference.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all those follow-up emails you get from someone you talk to, like, oh, are you ready to make
Yeah.
this decision yet? How can we move this along faster? Who do I need to talk to? No,
Yeah.
I mean, you do want to stay top of mind. You don't want to just ignore them,
Right.
but provide them with valuable resources that you've already accumulated. And that gives you the reason to stay in front of them. And so they see your name and they're right. That's right. I owe Chip an answer on this.
Yes.
Or, let me give them an update or whatever. And people are so much more comfortable with that than with that constant prodding of, well, when are you going to, what do we need to do next? Can we schedule our next meeting or phone call or whatever? It's so damn annoying. And
really is.
agencies need to get past that and figure out that, look, if a client isn't saying yes, it's because they're not ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an answer in itself. You're not ready.
Right. I mean, I literally just had a prospect today, and this is not just me making this up. I mean, I really did, where he said, look, I've been following you for years and the content, and you know what? Timing is now right. And I want you to talk forward to your partners. And that's how it went down. So, they have a proposal, but it's not there yet, but I've had that happen many times. And it's just part of that is the patience, but you're exactly right. I mean, and a lot of them are reviewing where you don't even know, to your point. It's like, it's hard not to worry about the numbers sometimes. Like, I want to see those views. It's like the human nature or what it's become. But you are,
it's okay as long as you can contain your urge to change something dramatic because of what you see, right? Either saying, hey, I'm going to change the format entirely because I'm not getting listener, or I'm just going to stop. So if you want to accumulate the data, that's fine, but don't overreact to it. That's the problem I see in looking at a lot of this data that's so readily available to us today. It more often than not causes people to either give up too quickly or to dramatically shift strategy too early. And neither one of those is particularly helpful. But unfortunately, we are at the end of our available time here today. So
this is a 6 hour.
I mean, we could certainly, I know that we could go on for 6 hours. I think we would have a precipitous drop in listenership, probably starting about now. So that's, if we haven't lost you already, thank you for continuing to listen. If you are still listening and you would like to learn more about Lee or RSWUS, Lee, where should they go to find out more information?
Sure. RSWUS.com is where everything is. And that resources tab is where all our content is.
Excellent. And you do have lots of excellent resources. You are
Thank
a,
you,
a
sir.
video maven yourself, and so there's lots of good content to be consumed there. So I would encourage you to do that, and I would encourage you to come back here because I'm sure Lee will be a guest again.
Absolutely.
I love having Lee on. So with that, that will
Thanks.
draw
I
to the
appreciate
end
it.
this episode of Chats with Chip. I appreciate you listening, and I will have you all back here on a future show.